my overall MVP for this season. Phenomenal year, like you said, plus on the ice. Just a positive, upbeat year for him. You hope that can go into if this year keeps being played, or if they cut it short, hopefully that momentum can carry into the next season. So moving on to our next question, who would have made a big run in the playoffs, or who is going to make a big run in the playoffs if we do see a return in the NHL? Let's start with you, Brock.
Alright, so I hate to say this because I'm not a fan of them, but can't be biased. The Pittsburgh Penguins, man. Every year you see them come out of the bottom of the Metro, like early in the league. They start off half decent, and they kind of trend downhill a little bit towards the middle of the season. They kind of plateau and fade off, and then when it comes time for playoffs, man, they turn it on quick, and they come running in. They do it often. They have mediocre start, turn it on, and a lot of times they'll take it all the way. So I got to say Pittsburgh.
What about you, Luke?
I'm going to have to say the reigning Stanley Cup champions in St. Louis. They won the Cup last year, obviously, and they have a very, very, very deep lineup. They have a decent top line, but when you compare their second, third, and fourth lines to the opposing teams, the Blues are so much deeper. The two front runners, there's two front runners for the Stanley Cup, both the Penguins, because they won the last winners for back-to-back Stanley Cups, but I have to go with such a deeper roster here in St. Louis.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to have to pick. I'm surprised you guys didn't pick the Flyers. I think the Flyers, like you said, Brock, if the season wouldn't have ended on some 10-game win streak or something like that, I think this team had the potential to make it all the way to the Stanley Cup, but I would have cut them short at the Eastern Conference title game. I'm surprised you guys didn't say the Flyers. The Flyers had a phenomenal season. Just hoping they can carry that into the next season if this season gets cut short. So moving on to the next question, who are the two front runners, one from each conference, please, to win a Stanley Cup? So in essence, who would be in the Stanley Cup series? Let's start with you, Luke.
So my two front runners would be St. Louis from the West, just because of how deep of a lineup they have. And I'd have to say it's either going to be Boston or Philly. I don't think Pittsburgh is as dominant of a team this year. They are great in the playoffs, but they're not as dominant as Boston and Philly are for the East this year.
What about you, Brock? What do you think?
So I'm gonna have to agree along those lines. In the Western Conference, I got the St. Louis Blues. I mean, they got Jordan Binnington and Ned, who's been solid all year. They got Tarasenko up on the front line and Parayko back on defense. They're healthy. And then in the Eastern Conference, I also have the Boston Bruins. I think we could have a repeat. I think we could have another St. Louis and Boston year this year in the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Those would definitely be my two front runners as well. So now let's start with you, Brock. Pick a winner to win the cup.
I'm gonna have to go with the St. Louis Blues. I think Boston's been doing good this season. They are sitting at the top of the league, but I just got a feeling that the Blues can wear them down. Like Luke said, they got a deep lineup, and I think they go a little deeper than Boston. I think the Blues could wear them down towards the end of the 7-game series, and I think the Blues could pull it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you there on that one. I'm gonna actually take the Bruins, like you mentioned earlier. Their goalie duo, they got so much depth in goalie. You don't have to see those guys facing, if at max 7 games in the net. They can split 3 and 4 if you really think about it, and just see who's hotter. That the goalie depth, goalie goes a long way in winning a cup. What do you think, Luke? Here, who would be your Stanley Cup championship for this season?
Definitely the Blues again. I mean, the Western Conference, I feel, living in the Eastern United States, as we all do, the Western Conference doesn't really get talked about a whole lot, and I think they're really underrated. But the Blues are such an underrated team here. St. Louis isn't like a hockey hub, per se, like Boston or Minnesota or Michigan, but they have so many good players that come out of the city, and the town itself is such a great hockey hub that is totally underrated. So I'm going to take St. Louis.
Back-to-back for both of you. Let's move into our final question. A way too early prediction here. Who is going to have a hot season starting next year's season if we do not see a return in the NHL for the 2019-2020 season? Start with you, Luke.
I'm going to go with the Arizona Coyotes. They got a brand new GM this year. He's actually been there a couple of years, my bad. but he's only 30 years old. So there's some guys on the Arizona Coyotes that are older than their general manager, and John Chayka. He's totally revitalized the team. The team was on a very bad downward spiral for a couple of years there, and new guy came in, totally turned him around, got him a bunch of really great draft picks, and now they're one of the top contenders.
Yeah, my great uncle's going to love that. Huge Coyotes fan, lives out there in Arizona. What about you, Brock?
So I'm gonna have to say it depends on definitely how the playoffs pan out, who seeds where, and who gets these decent draft picks. But I think, if Philly gets a decent draft pick, one draft pick that would be decent, they could make a pretty decent run next year. And I have another team, the Golden Knights. They're sitting atop their division right now. I think that they could actually come out of this doing pretty well. They get a draft pick that's somewhere along the middle to top, and they could come out hunting for a cup.
Good picks. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. Really fun talking. Really great episode. Definitely have you back on here for some more NHL episodes. That'll wrap up our Where the NHL is Heading During These Times episode. Thank you for listening.